Good morning, guys. Glad to have you back with us today. My name's Brian. It's Cliffside Outfitters, and we're working on the Hydrosport. Still trying to restore the bass boat. Today, what we're going to work on is the battery box. And the way the Hydrosport, the way the stringers are designed, the outside stringer comes down on the outside of the knee. And so the knee's here and the stringer's laying right down here like this. And that gives me a ledge for my battery box. And then it'll run over to the side of the hull. As the hull comes up, then it'll attach to the side of the hull and it'll sit on that ledge. We're going to put a bulkhead in the front and the back to give extra support. But to start with, we've got, well, you could build the box in place one at a time, but what I've elected to do is I'm going to take the bottom, which I've already cut. This is a 16 and a half by 19, and of course that's just for this boat. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach, it's going to lay up against the knee, sitting on the stringer, sitting on the outside of the hull here, and there's like a little straight comes down through here. It's a flat spot that this sits on, the way it's designed. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and attach the back sidewalls on this battery box. I'm going to attach them out of the boat. I'm going to put a little, I'll probably put a little epoxy here and use some stainless steel screws and screw this together. And then we'll glass the bottom side before we put it in. And by doing that, I think that it's going to be easier to assemble outside of the boat. And then, of course, you know, by glassing the bottom, we're giving it some added strength. And this is Coosa board. It don't need moisture protection, but we're not taking any chances. We're going to go ahead and glass both sides of this. Once the box is in place, then we'll glass the top and the sides and work all that in, blend it into the rest of our project. And so the first thing we need to do, I guess we need to cut some sides. My sides are 8 inches, so I've ripped me a strip here, and I'm just going to go on the table saw over here and cut our sections. This stuff cuts beautifully with a carbide tip saw. So it's warmed up some today, and I'm in the exterior part of the shop, the part that don't have any climate control, and it's pretty nice. We're having some unseasonably warm weather, and of course I've got my sticky clothes on. This shirt will stand up by itself now, but I continue to put it on, and if you ever do any glass work, you'll know why. But I'm going to grab some screws and a little bit, I'm going to mix a little epoxy up, and I'll be right back with you. Now the first thing I'm going to do, like I told you, we're going to screw it together. So I'm going to pre-drill some holes to keep the screws from splitting this. This is just a 1/2 inch Coosa, and I don't know how this material works, but I'm not going to just drive the screws in. We're going to pre-drill. I've got it on this flat edge, and I'm going to put this part of the box right up against that. We're pushing against, I've got a sheet of Coosa that's back here for the deck. We're sort of pushing up against it. I'm going to come half the distance up And pre-drill and countersink. All right. Now I've got this. This is a quick set and 5-minute epoxy, and I don't know that what I'm doing with this, as far as gluing this edge, is absolutely necessary. Because once this is in place, we're going to wrap everything. But I want to go ahead and do it, and that way I know that I've got solid contact. There ain't gonna be no rattling or nothing loose. So I'll put just a little bit on here, just to act as a glue to bond these two pieces together. We're going to try to do the best that we absolutely can. Alright, so of course we're using stainless steel fasteners. There's probably other things you could get by with, but since this is a marine application, I want to use stainless steel. I think we'll barely get them started. And then we're going to line this up, getting in the way, make sure that we're down as far as we're going to go. Get it started. Same with this side. Now, everything's going to hold well. Got a little bit of squeeze out, we'll clean that up. But everything's going to hold well while that glues up. Now, the next piece that we're putting in is this back piece. Now, it's going to set up on top of this. I don't know that you have to do it this way. I don't know that it matters all that much, but I'm going to set it on top, and then I'm going to trim it down, because I'd already cut my base piece, and I know I don't want to add anything to my dimension this way. I didn't mind adding a little bit to the side, but I want to maintain this dimension. So this is going to sit on top, and then we'll come back and trim this down. We're going to add a little bit of glue. To get that bottom side. Yeah. See if we can hold that and make all this happen without drilling a hole in it. Got lucky. All right. I've got to get just a little bit more epoxy to go in this seam right here. I don't think I've got enough. Nope, I do not have enough. Let me grab some. Alright, we got a little bit more. I'm gonna pry this up just enough to try to get some on it. Should have tried to do that before I put it on here, but we'll learn as we go. If I can hold that up and grill it all at the same time. Screwed. Back up. Here. Scrape that excess off. Don't need that. Making it all ugly, do we? Alright, so we got as much of the box as we want. Like I said, I'm going to set the saw up and trim this top right quick. Alright, let's get back inside, and I've got one of these already started. I'm going to give you a look at it, and then we'll try to get this one in place. Alright guys, let's take a look at the one that we worked on yesterday. As you can see, what we talked about before, the knee for this boat is the insides of the battery box. And then the stringer coming back here is what it sets on this side. And then over on this side, the bottom of the boat has a flat spot that makes a good place for this outside edge to rest on. And of course, we've got it glassed in. Now, I glassed up these bulkheads, and as you can see, well, maybe you can't see. Let me get you over here. So I glassed up these bulkheads. What I did, put some glass on here, and then I screwed the box in place with the stainless steel screws. And I done that sort of a wet connection. The fiberglass is stapled to the bottom of the box. It's wetted out. Everything's positioned in place, and then we screwed it down. And then of course we worked this over this bulkhead. There's two layers of glass here. One, the initial piece of glass that holds the bulkhead in place, and then the piece that is connected to the bottom actually goes over it. And then of course when we glass this side, we'll be going over it again. So we're making a nice strong bulkhead to hold those heavy batteries. The only issue that I had really, if you'll look, because the top of this bulkhead is square, we had a little bit of an air pocket. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, as much glass as we're putting here. I don't like it, but to be honest with you, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know, with the epoxy being fairly thin and the 1708 not liking to turn the corner, I couldn't get that air. You know, we'd push it out and it'd bubble back, and push it and it'd bubble back. I even tried to do it over a period of time as the glass was setting up, and it still it still comes back. But I don't think it's going to hurt a thing. Everything else in the boat, with the exception of a few small air bubbles, is pretty tight. The glass is adhered well to the stringers, the knees, and I guess you're just going to have some places some problem places. When I was cutting this boat apart, there was places on the stringers and the knees and all the structural elements where you had a layer of glass and you had an air pocket and another layer of glass over it. We don't want to avoid, we want to avoid that. That, you know, is not a very good lamination. It was everywhere in this boat. I mean, there was pockets you could hide money in between the layers of glass. So I'm not particularly excited about this layup, but it is what it is. And like I said, if y'all know how we could correct this, then of course let me know. But the only thing that I know that I could have done was put glass on the sides and not put any on the top, not let it wrap over. But anyway, so I think we're good. So let's get the other box in. So we're going to get it on the box, and we're going to get roughly an even amount all the way around. And what I'm going to do, I'm putting the chop strand down, because when I put the box down, I want the mat to be up. But so we've got it in position, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to staple it in place with a regular, this is just a T25, I think's what they call it, staple gun. We're just going to staple it in place, because if we don't, for one, we can't do it wet if it's not wet, and if it's wet and we try to do it, then this is just going to fall away from the box. So we don't want that. We want it to stay tight to the box. So we're just going to staple it on here, and that way it'll stay in place till the resin dries. If you glass it, it really improves the strength. Be mindful when whatever thickness of material that you use, make sure you use the correct staple. You don't want them sticking through the other side. You could probably use less staples than what I'm using, but don't want to take a chance. Once this gets all wet and we flip it upside down, if it starts bulging and sagging, not good. So the next thing we need to do, we need to coat this. Let me get something mixed up and we'll be... I've become a big fan of these little chip brushes. You could use a roller, but I'm doing my project sort of sporadic. I'm able to work on it on the weekends and in the evenings some. So it's I'd go through a ton of rollers, and I find that these little brushes work great, and they're dirt cheap. The rollers, I bought a roller and I tried the roller, and it works pretty good, but it holds a lot of resin. That means when you throw the head away, you're throwing away a lot of resin, and it works good. It's just, it wouldn't be economical for me doing this piecemealing it like I am. So I'm just going to pour a little resin on here and start working it in with this brush. Not being too rough, because this is the chop strand side. You can start moving it around if you're too rough with it. You'll start picking up fibers, and which is, I don't guess it'd make that much difference, but we don't want to do that unless we have to. Unless we can't help it. I mean, once it gets saturated, you're going to pick up a few, but we're going to try to prevent that. There again, I'm not trying to wet out what's hanging over the box. It don't matter if I do, it just makes it messier. So I'll wet that out from the top side. And this 1708 with this chop strand on it, it likes resin. And it just keeps soaking it up. I've had a heck of a time trying to get, I'm looking for a clear lamination with epoxy being thin, and this 1708 being liking a lot of it. It seems to run out, and I mean, I'm getting it strong, but I'm sure I'm wasting some. There again, that chop strand. A little different. A little different. I find everything about this glass works better for me when I don't get in too big of a hurry, and sometimes that's hard. But if I take my time, I seem to do a little better with it. Like I said, we're not going to get a perfect lamination on this. I'm not really trying to. I just want to get that adhered to the bottom of the Coosa box for the most part. That'll set up and give it some strength. It won't be perfect, but it'll be good enough. Certainly better than what it was before. So I've got two pieces here. One is going to help me. They're for finishing the installation of the glass over the bulkheads. That first layer, I've already bedded them in, and I've tabbed them to the hull. I'm going to take this and go over the top of them. The first one I put a little bit on last night. I had some resin mixed up, so I went ahead and went over the top of it. But I've got to add a piece, and then of course I got to do the back one. So let me get some resin on these. All right. So here's our little piece to finish off what we done yesterday evening, and we'll roll that in. I think I got it on the right side. I guess it matters. I think I got that one upside down. Don't make no never mind, I guess, on this piece. And here's the piece for the one in the back. Around it. I find it just as easy for me. May be different for you, but it's just as easy for me to work it with my hand to start with. It's not as neat, but it works. Yeah, this 1708, it is a thirsty cloth. It's still got white spots. Let me grab a different roller. Alright, so I got my smaller roller here. I find that it works better for me on these little tight corners. Of course, when we put these in, we put some peanut butter and made them where they were had a nice transition. So we got our box, got all our goo on it, and so let's put it down here. Rub it right up against that side. Lift it up, make sure we're where we need to be there. Like we're even there. We're even on the back. think that's about perfect. Make sure I'm not protruding past that. Okay. Alright, so while we hold it in place, I'm going to pre-drill. Down into that stringer just a little bit. Here. And I'll put one here. Double check that. So this one at the back is going to have to be a little bit of an angle because of the way it's designed. Like our good stainless steel screws. These screws, like I said, are probably unnecessary. Being my luck, if I didn't screw it down, I'd bump it, Smokey would bump it, something would bump it, and my battery box would end up being crooked. So I've got my resin in the cup. There again, I'm going to use my brush. I'm going to start wetting out the portion of the glass that was sticking outside of the edge of the box. I guess that's Coosa, so I guess it'll hurt anything. Alright guys, well, I'm going to continue to wet this skirt out, get it pinned down, and then we'll come back a little later on. All this has got to set up and dry. The rest of the portion of this project, this part of the project, is just going to be rolling, getting this rolled down, trying to get the air out of it. So I'm going to do that off camera. I appreciate you hanging out with us today. Until next time, this is Brian, Cliffside Outfitters. Y'all have a good day.